Now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com. Joining us now, the lead SEC college football writer for BleacherReport.com, Barrett Sallee. How you doing, Barrett?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing very well. Thanks very much for coming on with us today. We wanted to get your take as an SEC follower and a guy that's covered the conference now for several years. What did you think of the debuts of Texas A&M and Missouri to the Southeastern Conference?
I thought A&M was good. I thought they played an SEC brand of football, even though they run that spread. I think they were physical. They were physical in the line of scrimmage, most importantly, which is what you have to be in the SEC. And really, you have to give credit to Florida. They adjusted at halftime to that offense. I think there was so much of a mystery with how Johnny Manziel was going to run that offense that Florida really had no idea. But they adjusted well, allowed only 49 yards in the second half. But I think A&M looked good. I think they certainly have the type of players that can compete in the SEC. Do they have the depth? I think that's something that we'll find out later on down the season once depth starts becoming a major issue. But very impressed with A&M. Missouri, I was not impressed with. I thought Missouri could exploit the defensive holes that Georgia had due to suspensions and injuries. But really, I think both those teams sleptwalked through the first half of that game, and then Jarvis Jones, Georgia linebacker, he just took over. That guy's a monster. Missouri just had no answer for him. So I was disappointed with Missouri, but I think they still have enough, offensive firepower to at least make it interesting in a couple games. Based
on what you saw over the weekend, then, which of the two programs do you think is going to have an easier time transitioning into the SEC long term?
Long term, I think it's A&M because they have the foundation in Texas to recruit well, to sell themselves as the SEC team in the state of Texas. Obviously they play in a tough neighborhood in the SEC West, but usually division power is cyclical, and I think the SEC is no different. The SEC East is on the rise, I think, still. So, not to say that the teams like Alabama and LSU won't be there forever, but there's going to be down years, and I think A&M certainly can long term, establish itself as one of the premier teams in the West. But it may take some time, but, I wouldn't be surprised if A&M's competing for division titles here in 6 or 7 years.
And one of the things, 6 or 7 years, boy, that's something to look forward to.
All right. Well, it's going to take some time.
Yeah, it will take some time. We saw what that happened with Arkansas like that when they moved from the Southwest Conference over to the SEC. It took a while. When you were watching these ball games, a common denominator in both games was that both A&M and Missouri were competitive in the first half and then wore down in the second half. And I think what we saw is that neither one of these teams is used to seeing the kind of defenses they're going to see week after week after week in the SEC. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's going to be an issue, and obviously A&M's going to have to adjust a little bit because of what Florida did in the second half, because it basically gave SEC defenses the blueprint to beat the Aggies. So yeah, I think they're going to have to adjust to the speed, particularly the speed of the front seven that typically exists in the SEC. That's something that probably will come with time more than anything else, because right now, because of the transition, both teams probably aren't built to handle that right, on a week in, week out basis. But that is something that comes with time, and so I think you're going to see a different sort of philosophy in recruiting from both of those programs to handle what they see this year for the first time, really in their history.
Also wanted to get your thoughts on LSU's win over Washington. What do you make of the Tigers so far this year?
Really good. I think the defense, especially the secondary, getting to go up against a guy like Keith Price and a potent passing attack in the Huskies was a very, very key piece to their puzzle, because we saw Jalen Mills, SEC Defensive Freshman of the Week, step right in for Tyrann Mathieu. Didn't seem to be an issue. Basically shut Keith Price down, and that was a big question because they lost a first-round draft pick, a fourth-round draft pick, a third-round draft pick, and a Heisman finalist from last year's secondary. So they had some holes to fill, and they filled them pretty well, I think. And I think Zach Mettenberger is still sort of being hidden by the LSU coaching staff. I think they're hiding him on purpose. They're not letting him unleash that big arm because they want to surprise SEC teams when they can. So LSU is still sort of a mystery on offense, but I think defensively they've absolutely solved their questions.
Do you think that it's possible they could be a better football team this year than they were last year?
Yeah, absolutely. There's still obviously the question marks on offense, but they solved their biggest question mark with quarterback Zach Mettenberger. He's going to be able to stretch the field. He hasn't had to do it yet, but he's able to do that. And if they can just give the impression that they can stretch the field, then those running backs can absolutely exploit defensive holes that are created because the offense will be able to keep defenses honest now, and that was the big issue last year. So, yeah, they absolutely can be better than they were a year ago, even without Tyrann Mathieu.
I made the comment yesterday on this show that with Louisiana-Monroe beating Arkansas, that loss was so damaging that Arkansas could run the table and have no shot at getting in the BCS championship game now. What do you think?
Yeah, that's it's certainly something to consider, and yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility. It was a tough loss to ULM. Obviously losing Tyler Wilson in the game is going to throw any game plan out the door. But the biggest issue that Arkansas has is the fact that Paul Haynes does not fix that defense, because they're not going to be able to contend anyway unless the defense gets better. But yeah, that loss certainly, even if they run the table, that could prevent them from getting in the VCS championship game, especially considering what other teams do if Oregon runs the table, if USC runs the table, if Oklahoma goes undefeated. Things like that. It certainly could be the game that prevents the SEC from playing for a title if Arkansas does run the table.
With Arkansas, do you have any idea about Tyler Wilson's status for the Alabama game?
He's day-to-day. They're still monitoring him. They did move Brandon Mitchell back to quarterback. He was a wide receiver for the first two games and actually led Arkansas in receiving in the opener. He's a dual-threat guy, and I think that's the guy that will fill in above Brandon Allen, because Brandon Mitchell is – Arkansas's problem really is its offensive line. Its offensive line has been awful for 2 years now, and if you're going to have a quarterback stand back there and get abused like Tyler Wilson has for the last 2 years, you might as well have his backup be a guy that can take those hits and be mobile and make things happen with his legs, because clearly Arkansas is not blocking anybody.
Well, and that's not a good thing when you're playing Alabama this weekend.
No, last time I checked, they had a pretty good front set.
Yeah, they're fair. Did that game just pretty much put a final nail in the coffin of John L. Smith's chances of being the head coach next year at Arkansas?
Yeah, I think so. That may be a little unfair, because when you lose your quarterback, you're going to have issues anyway. But then the fact that Arkansas's biggest issue is defense, and that was really on Petrino, because he didn't recruit very well on the defensive side of the football. But yeah, that game, because of that, John L. Smith will be looking for work. I think that was probably going to be the case anyway, but unless they won the national championship. But now I think you can pretty much be assured that they spent Sunday in that athletic department putting together a very long short list for coaching candidates.
And talk a little bit about just how good that Alabama team is this year. Are they better than anybody could have expected them to be?
They're better than I expected them to be. I thought they'd have issues with Michigan in that opener, with those holes they have to fill on defense, and that just didn't happen. It looked like they picked up right where they left off. So it's a really good football team that I think is on the brink of becoming a dynasty if it wins the national title this year.
How much of a difference is there between Alabama and LSU right now? For a while there, it looked like it was going to be Alabama and LSU, but is Alabama head and shoulders above everybody else?
Not head and shoulders. It's a close competition. LSU's, I think, the number 2 team in the country, and really they just haven't been tested like Alabama has. I think Michigan was overrated a little bit, but certainly better than Washington. So, LSU is a really good football team that absolutely can be in the conversation as the number 1 team in the country. It just doesn't have the resume this season to probably warrant that top spot right now.
And for folks who are not familiar with BleacherReport.com, talk a little bit about your assignments there, what you do, and what people can expect when they go to Bleacher Report.
Yeah, I'm the lead SEC writer for Bleacher Report. We hired 25 lead writers last March, and I'm one of those groups that I cover the SEC full time and update the SEC blog 6 or 7 times a day. It's BleacherReport.com/SEC blog. We didn't kill any brain cells thinking of the name. And then you can always find me on Twitter at Barrett Sallee, BarrettSallee.
Now, you're based out of what, Atlanta?
I am a lifelong Atlantan. I'm one of the few locals that actually still exist in this city.
And so how long have you been covering the SEC?
I've been covering the SEC for 12 years now in various aspects. I was in TV for a while, did radio, wrote for CFN for College Football News for 4 years, and then got hired by Bleacher Report back in March.
It's the best conference. I love it.
There's never a dull moment, and even in the off-season, even when we want dull moments to be around.
Yeah, no vacations for you, buddy. I know that. Hey, Barrett, Thanks very much for coming on with us. We appreciate it. We hope we can talk to you down the line, okay?
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, Barrett Sallee on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.